42 months, 3.5 years, or 1,260 days. So we know we're halfway. When we get to the 11th to the 13th chapter, we're halfway. In the 13th chapter is where the beast is described. Actually, that's when he comes in to Jerusalem, if you will. Daniel says that he fights from the time he makes the covenant with the northern confederacy. I've got these battles drawn. From the time he's introduced, and this is the Antichrist with his type, style, and dress that is God acceptable to the world. These are the wars that he fights with Rosh, with the countries that I had you name tonight. Then he conquers those countries. Then Daniel says he enters into the glorious land. And then there is 42 months. How long until that vision be accomplished, Daniel? For a time and times and a half a time. All right. So I come to the middle of the book of Revelation, and I find that times and time, half a time, and lo, in the 13th chapter, the beast rises out of the sea and out of the land, and he is in Jerusalem and starts working in the temple right there. Can you see how beautifully Daniel describes him coming at the half of the week into Jerusalem, and then Revelations describes him coming at the half of the week as well. The last battle, of course, is fought. I will go in a moment to the other chapters and describe this beast just a little more that is going to be coming. But we are going to the 11th chapter. Now, why? I mentioned, is there going to be a 7-year period? Why? I'll ask this again. Why doesn't Jesus just come, take us home, judge the world, and it be done with? Because there are 7 covenants that were made to the Jews that have got to be fulfilled. And I could name the 7, the Edenic, the Adamic, the Abrahamic, the Palestinian, the Davidic, and some others I can't name. But I want to name the few to you that are important to this hour. First of all is the Abrahamic covenant, Genesis 12, 1 through 3, 13, verse 14, chapter 15 and 4, chapter 17 and 1, chapter 22 and 17, that's in Genesis. And the Palestinian covenant. Now, the Abrahamic covenant said you are going to have seed as the sand of the seashore and the stars of the sky, and it is in that covenant in Genesis that he says they shall rule from the great river of Egypt unto the Euphrates. And once again, I point out, here's the Mediterranean, here is Jerusalem, Galilee, and Brother Bill had a great thought last night. We're fixing to make some dog-ear flip charts that'll come down from the top of here. When I need them, I'll reach up and get them, and one of them be a map, and so the next time we teach it, we're going to have a bunch of different things. But here's the Euphrates, and the great river of Egypt is down here somewhere. This is the millennium boundary. The Jews have never had that promise fulfilled, but they shall. That is the Abrahamic covenant. Then the Palestinian covenant does about the same thing. And I could give you scriptures if you want that. The Davidic covenant promises, there shall not fail you a man on the throne. And when we get into the millennium, I'm going to show you the kind of worship they'll have. And I'll show you a temple. I'll describe the temple. And I'll describe a prince coming through that temple and being worshipped. And you'll want to hear about that. Then, of course, the new covenant, Jeremiah 31, tells us about it as well. And so these covenants have got to be fulfilled. God says you're going to plant gardens and your crops, and somebody's not going to take it away from you. You're going to have all nations come, and you're going to rule them. And they're going to come up to the temple. 10 men are going to take a hold of the skirt of him that's a Jew and say, we hear that God is with you. We shall go up and worship. And so those promises have got to be fulfilled. And God is not slack concerning his promises, as some men count slackness, but it's faithful. Thank God. And so these promises have been made to the Jew. God has made them. And Paul tells us he will bring them in again for the purpose of these promises that he has made to them. Many of these promises will go right on into eternity. That's the reason that you'll have a new heaven and a new earth. And I'll describe that and tell you why it is said like that when we get there. You want to hear it? Nod your head if you do. Thursday night, we'll get there. All right. Now then, in the 11th chapter, we're going to talk about God turning back to the Jews and how it's going to be done. He says, I was given a rod and told to measure the temple, and he measured it. But don't measure the court because it's given to the Gentiles for them to tread it down for 42 months. So they got 42 months left. That was my first mention. Then I will give power unto my 2 witnesses. They shall prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. There you've got the days mentioned. I know how long a prophetic year is by how many days are in 42 months. You're able to figure it out. All right. Now these are 2 olive trees and 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. It is almost similar to the description that is given in Zechariah of these 2 witnesses. However, John goes a little more into detail to describe these 2 men. Now these are 2 men that come. They have power to hurt those that hurt them. And it mentions the days of their prophecy. And for those who believe that these men are just 2 Jews that are going to come, you need to understand that these have power to shut up heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. And this have power is in the aorist sense, I understand, which is a past punctual action. It is not present. It is not now, but that action took place in the day of their prophecy. Now, Alfred in the Greek calls for these next chapters as them being somewhat backward and forward looking. And there are some landmarks for the type of interpretation that we have. And when I get to it in a moment, you'll understand what I'm saying. What he is saying is there is no need to try to make something out of this that's not. Who had power in the days of their prophecy to shut up heaven that it rained not? Elijah. Who did Jesus say, I will send before that great and terrible day and will restore all things? Elijah. So why fuss about it? It's Elijah. The next one that is mentioned, the 2 witnesses, says that he has power over the waters to turn them to blood, and the antecedent of course, that is the same in the day of his prophecy. Well, who had that power? Moses. Who stood on the Mount of Transfiguration with Elijah? Moses. Now, somebody said, couldn't it be Enoch and Elijah? I'm a little inquisitive. Why Enoch? I am answered because he and Elijah did not die. So they will have to come back and die. I'm going to ask you, do you really know what happened to Enoch and Elijah? Are you really ready to say? I might ask you this. Did something happen to them different than what happened to Moses? I think not, because Moses seemed as in good health as Elijah did on the Mount of Transfiguration. The whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, is an anthropomorphism, and you almost have to gargle that one, which means God appearing to do a thing. I think really, and I should say this, I think it said of Moses that he died and God buried him. But the different thing about Moses and everybody else has died, James says that the angels have a fuss every now and then with the devil about the body of Moses. They dispute with him about the body of Moses. He evidently knows where everybody else is buried but Moses. Frankly, I think that God buried him is the same kind of statement as God taking Elijah up into heaven by a whirlwind, or that Elijah was not, he was translated. I think the same thing happened between them, because the devil don't know where Moses is and he knows where everybody else is. And once again, I repeat, on the Mount of Transfiguration, Moses stood with Elijah in good health. And here he's standing in the last days. And by the way, Enoch represented nothing.